And now we are joined by Mike Straw at the Mike Straw on Twitter, the Buffalo Sabres editor at Forged in Buffalo. Hey, Mike, how you doing today?
Doing good, Rye. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us. You get to be the inaugural guest on the unnamed Sabres Hockey Central podcast.
Oh, fantastic!
I'll tell you what. That's how.
Maybe by the end of it, we'll come up with something that could be used as a fun name.
Right now, at this point, we're so legit of a podcast, we don't have a name.
Yeah, how about the Billy Lano? I mean, we might score more often, but
the Billy Lano show.
Yeah, mine is Billy Lano.
Don't ruin my joke, man. I'm totally. I swear, I'm getting a Billy Lano third jersey on the clearance rack because we all know he's getting bought out.
I know, right? I was so tempted before the season started. I still had hope that I was actually going to buy a Billy Lano jersey, knowing Steve I was going to end up being traded, and I'm glad I didn't.
You know, before we get into the questions, I just want to say I'm one of the people. I saw, the first season was bad. I'm like, okay, I have faith. He'll be better. He has to be better. And then I'm glad I didn't buy into it because he's just not that good of a hockey player.
No, but $4.5 million.
Hey, where do I apply, right?
I know, $4.5 million to do something to do something terrible.
So looking at this Buffalo Sabres team, there's a lot of moving parts coming up with the offseason, only a couple weeks away for the Sabres. In your opinion, who stays on this team and who's gone next season?
The number one, obviously, there's the obvious players who are going to stay. In Cody Hodgson, he's going to be here. Zemgus Girgensons, he's going to be here. Marcus Foligno, he's likely going to be here. He's an RFA upcoming too, but I still think he ends up as a fourth-line player on this team. Defensive-wise, a lot of people talk about Tyler Myers and Christian Ehrhoff being traded. I don't see either of them being traded. I think they're going to be here for the long haul. If not just next year, they'll be here for the foreseeable future as the top two defensemen on this team. And the way Myers has played over the last couple months, there's no reason why you would want to trade him. There's no point in getting rid of players when you're trying to rebuild. You want to keep your good players. And at the cap hit that Ehrhoff is and the way Myers has progressed over the last 2-3 months, you'll want to keep them. But there's only maybe those four. Jonas Enroth, obviously, and then Michael Neuwirth as the goaltenders. But those four players that I guarantee, or five players I guarantee will be here next year.
Now, you did mention that the talk of Tyler Myers and Christian Ehrhoff. Obviously, there was a big deal over the trade deadline about those guys. But that kind of goes into my next question here. With the Sabres getting a top pick, there's no doubt about it. They're close to clinching or have already clinched 30th place in the NHL. Who is a better pick for this franchise moving forward? Is it Aaron Ekblad? Is it Sam Reinhart? Or is it someone else that we haven't talked about?
Personally, I'd like to say it's Sam Reinhart. Aaron Ekblad, I think you could bait the Oilers. Say you get the number one pick and you want to pick up another third round pick, or even a second round pick. Depending where Edmonton picks and how high they view, you could potentially, if you're the Sabres, trade down to 2 or 3 and still get the player you want at number one and add another draft pick. So, because I don't see the Sabres looking at Ekblad, but Bennett and Reinhart are going to be right there basically no matter what in the top 3. You're going to get a choice of those two players, because I just don't see Edmonton taking another forward after taking a forward every year with their first pick for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
They need defensive help bad. So basically right now, if I had to pinpoint one guy, though, it'd be Sam Reinhart, just because I view he has the best offensive potential between him and Bennett.
And obviously, a lot of people have said Aaron Ekblad is the next Shea Weber, and it's very hard to say this guy for sure is going to be phenomenal. I mean, Reinhart and Ekblad both seem like they're one of those can't miss guys. I mean, they're not Connor. It's not Connor McDavid by no long stretch, but you look at it, and like you said, the Oilers, who knows what they're doing. But I said on Twitter, I was actually going to say you got to get out of my head, because I know the Oilers want to get back into the draft in the second and third round, because I don't think they have those picks. But the Sabres could potentially hold the Oilers kind of hostage and say, okay, well, if we're first, you're second. If you want Aaron Ekblad, you got to give us something for him, and that could be.
I mean, even if there's no picks, you can try, and maybe if they covet Ekblad that much and they want that top defenseman, maybe you can bait them into giving you a guy like, I mean, it's highly unlikely, but giving you a guy like Sam Gagner in a deal, or even a Nail Yakupov in a deal, or whatever they want. It all depends on how high they view Aaron Ekblad coming out, because if they view him highly enough, there's no telling what they would give up for him.
Well, that's the fun part about Tim Murray that you and I even learned at the deadline when we were sitting in the media room and just watching all these trades unfold. It's crazy that there's a general manager in the First Niagara Center that's not afraid to make a big deal if it's the right deal, and that's the fun part about it.
He's not afraid to make these big deals. He's not afraid to make simple hockey deals like we saw with the Brady McNabb Hudson Fashing trade at the deadline. I mean, if he feels it's going to help the team in the long term, then he's going to do it. He doesn't have any ties with any of these players. Why would he keep them if he doesn't have any ties? That being said, going back on the Myers Ehrhoff stuff, if a deal were to come up where a team is willing to give you a top 3 forward for Tyler Myers, you got to think Tim Murray's the type of guy to go, well, we have enough defensemen in the system, okay. Hey, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I lost you for a second.
Yeah, we had kind of an issue there.
Oh, it's okay. It's all right. Just going back to that, like you had said before we lost you there for a second. The Sabres have a plethora of defensive prospects. Well, yes, Aaron Ekblad would look nice and would potentially make one of those top-notch defensive prospects expendable. It's you don't want to get in a spot like the Oilers are in. You don't want to have too many. I mean, you can never have. I guess I want to be careful how I say this because you can never really have too many defensemen or too many forwards. But if you have more weight in defense and you have an offense, you're going to end up like Edmonton, where they have a lot of weight at forward, but really they're thin defensively. So that's kind of why I think personally, Sam Reinhart, I've just been on fire with that idea for a couple months now, just because you get a top offensive prospect. You really. This team, if I'm not mistaken, they're still on pace to set the record for least amount of goals scored in the modern era.
Yeah, I think they are as well. I'm not.
I think it's
sure
151 in Tampa in 97-98.
Yeah, I mean, the way they're going, averaging 1-2 goals a game, there's no reason why they can't break that record. Because now they're at 100. They're at 138 goals for right now. So. When you look at that, and in 10 games left to go, they have to get 2 goals or 3 goals in at least 2 games to not fall victim to it.
And you know what? Even if they don't set the record, the fact that they're most likely going to still finish the season off without scoring more than 2 goals a game, that's mind blowing to me.
Oh, without a doubt, it's just absolutely disgusting with this team. But you have to bottom out in order to get good. I mean, that's how it's gone. Edmonton, for some reason, their method of bottoming out year after year to get good isn't really paying off. But there's other teams that prove that it does pay off. So who knows how Tim Murray goes and how Ted Nolan goes in the future. But I feel confident in the fact of who's running the show to where they have a plan in place. They know what they're going to do. And even with these potential NHL draft lottery changes, they know how they're going to act. I mean, with the amount of picks they have, they basically can just offer whatever they want to get whoever they want.
It's come to a point now, and like what you've been saying, there's an end game. We can see, okay, they traded Braden McNabb, but this is why. We understand. Where before Darcy Regier would make a move and we would say, why? We don't get it. But now maybe it's because of the increased hope or because there have been a lot of changes, but we're able to see now, okay, that's going to be that. This is going to do that. And in 4 or 5 years, we're going to have a really good something, whatever happens. Like I said, though, there's an end game and we can stay positive. We don't have to look and say it's Darcy Regier. He's going to screw it up again.
Exactly. I mean, you never know. Tim Murray might screw things up, but because he's fresh and because he's new, you kind of have given the benefit of the doubt, and you'll give him the benefit of the doubt until he makes this move that makes you go, what? Like he's not, obviously, he's only been here for a few months, so he doesn't have what Darcy ended up having hanging over his head for 8 years, the Briere and Drury situation that no one seems to get over. And until Murray can make a move that'll make people forget about that by bringing in a high-caliber player or getting this team a superstar, then he has that unfortunately still hanging over his head when he doesn't deserve it. He has everybody going, well, Darcy lost these players. What are you going to do to replace them nearly a decade later?
We've been kind of negative here for the past couple minutes. I want to add a little bit of happiness into this unnamed podcast we've got going here. Who's made the biggest impression personally on you this season in Buffalo?
Personally, I mean, I'm going to go with the obvious. I'm going to go with an obvious answer, and I'm going to go with an answer that maybe people don't expect. Obviously, it's Zemgus Girgensons as far as who's been the most impressive, because no one expected him to be as NHL ready as he is, especially when he was looking to go to Vermont before last season. He was thinking still going about going to college, but they were able to convince him to go to AHL. And it's one of those things where it's one of those things where he has a man's body at such a young age to where he's phenomenal at what he does, and he's got that potential to be a second-line center or, at worst, a third-line center. As far as the other players impress me, and people get on his case so much for the cap hit and him being, but I'm going to say Drew Stafford. I have liked his game ever since the trade of Vanek. I feel he stepped up his presence on the ice. The trade of Ott, he really stepped up his presence on the ice. And it's just one of those things where he seems to take advantage of that role he's been given, and he wants to prove he can be a leader on an NHL team.
And I don't know about you, but I could probably say just by talking to you and knowing you that you would agree with me that if Stafford's here in October, he'll be the captain.
Without a doubt. I mean,
okay.
And that might mean he'll be traded too.
You know what? You got to keep the streak going.
With the recent run of the last three captains of this team being traded, you gotta keep it going, exactly. So maybe he'll end up being dealt. Maybe everybody else's dreams in Buffalo will be realized if he's traded as team captain. But to be honest, I don't think he's going to be traded. I don't think he's going to leave after next season. I think he'll end up getting an extension here to be not necessarily a top-line player, but to be that veteran leader that they want. And I feel he's really stepping up in his efforts to prove that he can be a guy to be leaned on now with Vanek gone, everybody gone over the past few years. It's basically him. When you look at the forwards on his team, he's the most seasoned on the team as far as tenure here and tenure in the league. So it's Drew Stafford's team right now up front.
And speaking of stepping up, unfortunately, we've had to have two AHL goaltenders step up these past couple of weeks because of an injury to Jonas Enroth and Michael Neuwirth, which on Neuwirth, and it doesn't appear he's going to be back anytime soon, which I'm afraid if it's his groin again, because I know he had groin problems in Washington. But the question I have here is obviously going into the next season, Enroth and Neuwirth are the number one and number 1A, 1B, if you will. But is there any possibility that you see with the play of Matt Hackett, or if Nathan Lewin gets a chance to redeem himself after a little bit of a bad stretch, that either of those guys could insert themselves into the goaltending race next season?
I feel it's a four-person race. I mean, if Dominic Hasek is in town this weekend, if the team wants to go and give him a contract offer too and make it a five-person race, go for it. But I honestly feel it's a four-goalie race. I don't think there's any clear-cut favorite because they're all four unproven starting goaltenders. I mean, you have Hackett and Lewin who are unproven professionals, and you have Neuwirth and Enroth who haven't really been given their chance. So I could see how any one of them stepping up their game and becoming the guy. If I had to put my money on who will become the guy, obviously I'm going to put it on Enroth because he's been here the longest. But I feel Matt Hackett, I think he finally started to get his act together after taking everything for granted and kind of feeling entitled at the beginning of the year and wondering why he's in Rochester. He's better than this. He kind of had an ego issue. I think he can come around in the offseason and really make a run to be the number two.
Well, he even admitted that when he got called up, he said he kind of felt a little too comfortable in Rochester, and he knew it's almost like he had figured out like you said, I'm better than this. I don't belong here. I'll get to Buffalo. I'm not worried about it. And then when he got to Buffalo, he's like, oh hey, maybe I should cut it out. And Ted Nolan flat out said yesterday after practice, there's no goaltending, there's no schedule. It's going to be you play the best you're going to play. So if Hackett keeps playing good, I mean, he may not get the victory, but if he continues to statistically play good, he'll get the starts until guys come back, and that might not be a bad idea.
Exactly, and it's one of those things where you just keep riding them, and next season we'll see what happens. But if he has this confidence, and then he goes back to Rochester at the end of the season where they're fighting for their playoff lives, but if they still end up making it in, I mean, this could be the start of a nice little run for him in the postseason that really builds his confidence going to next year.
Absolutely. And I got one more question here for you. It's a little bit of a fun question, kind of bring the podcast full circle. Now, we know Ville Leno has statistically, he's been horrible, but when you look at the I think it's the Fenwick numbers, he's been good. One of the better ones on the Sabres. But I'm just going to flat out ask you, have you seen anybody play worse than Ville Leno has played as a Buffalo Sabre?
John Scott.
Well,
no.
Go for the easy one. Go for the easy one. Why don't you? I mean, I'm asking like a guy who's been given as much of an opportunity as Ville Leno has and just completely fallen on their face, because I couldn't think of anyone. So that's why I actually had to ask you.
This is tough. I'm trying to think back the last decade or two. I'd have to. I mean, Brian Holzinger really didn't do that much when he got traded to Tampa Bay in the Chris Gratton deal. 2000. I mean, he did most he had in the season. I think he had like mid-30s in points. He never played a full season in his career. He played 81 games a couple times, but he after the trade there, I mean, he really didn't do much with Tampa Bay. So maybe that, but I mean, he at least scored. In his first full season with the Lightning, like I said, he put the puck in the net. But other than that, I can't think of anybody who's played worse. I just can't. and
now you know why, and now everybody of the podcast that is listening will know why. At the end of the season, when Ville Leno was bought out, which is a foregone conclusion, many of us believe, I will be purchasing a Ville Leno third jersey, because it just feels right. You know, it just feels like in 10 years when I look back and go, what was that era? And I'll see that jersey in my closet and go, that is what we're going through, is a Ville Leno third jersey.
When you think about it, maybe they get another number 23 next year. Okay, you have this Ville Leno jersey on clearance that you bought for like $60. Then you spend $40 to get the name, or $50 to get the name replaced. And look, you just saved half off on a player who's actually on the team.
Do you want to know something funny? I'm not sure what number he wears in juniors, but I have seen some Sam Reinhart jerseys with the number 23 on it. So that was also another reason that if the Ville Leno actual, like the blue jerseys are, the home jerseys are cheap, I may pick one up, just because I know when Steve Ott was acquired, they were the Sabres store was begging you for your Derek Roy jersey to change it over to Steve Ott. So yeah. It may be one of those good investments. If not, I still got that terrible jersey to stare at every time I open up my closet.
Exactly, and now you get to cry yourself to. I mean, it'd be something. I mean, it may not be something that makes you cry. Maybe in 4 or 5 years from now, even maybe less, you're opening it when you need a laugh, when you're upset about something.
It'll fill me with pride. I will wear it. I will wear it with pride. I'll be as proud with that jersey as somebody will be with one of their jersey fouls. I will be that proud. Except that it will not be a jersey foul. It will just be a terrible jersey to be seen in public with. So,
which is still technically, I think that's worse than any jersey foul.
Someone will give me flack for it, and I don't even care. I'll just say I was there. I was there when the team was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. So much so that I bought the worst jersey ever designed.
It's kind of like being a Bills fan for the past 15 years.
Exactly.
On that note, I want to say thank you, Mike. At the Mike Straw on Twitter, again, the Sabres editor at Forged in Buffalo. Thanks again for joining us. I don't see why we won't have you back sometime soon.
All right, looking forward to coming back. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, and we'll. I think we'll be talking to you again a couple weeks around the draft lottery time. We can get you back, unless you're a super busy guy. But
no, that works for me.
Thanks again, man. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks.